Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Applications Committee, Tuesday 17th of March 2026. This meeting has been live streamed and will be made available on the Council website for public viewing. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting, writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. If you're in the hall, you can do this on your iPhone or iPad. Please don't repeat contributions already made by our members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it's intended as part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time or write leave in the Teams chat function and then join when you rejoin the meeting so we can keep track of where the meeting is going. All members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions. And when referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. Similar to the process now followed at full council, when considering motions or amendments which are substantive in nature, I will call a recess where necessary so that I may seek governance advice on competency. This is good practice in governance terms and will also provide for governance to be able to collate and circulate the terms of said motion or amendment to members in order that they may have the opportunity to properly review it. I hope this process makes matters more effective and I seek members' support in implementing this. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. As you might recall, the pre-election guidance, our council pre-election period guidance was emailed to you on the 12th of February 2026 and again on the 5th of March 2026 with further advice. As mentioned in the emails, the guidance is there to ensure that as a council we operate in a political neutral way in the run-up to the election. The pre-election period begins on Monday the 16th of March 2026 for our council and ends on Friday the 8th of May. In terms of the guidance, I would highlight the following. Councils are prohibited by Section 2 of the Local Government Act 1986 from publishing any material which appears to be designed to affect public support for a political party. Publicity is defined very widely. It includes any communication in whatever form, addressed to the public at large or to a section of the public. Worth highlighting that publicity also includes the streaming of meetings online. These obligations apply all year round, but are particularly sensitive during a pre-election period. So please bear this in mind during today's meeting. Tracy, our clerk, can you confirm said and apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. We've got 10 members present in total. 5 members present here in person at the Council HQ, being the Chair, Councillor John Campbell, Councillor Hislop, Councillor McFarlane and Councillor Slater. 5 members present on Microsoft Teams, being Councillor Drybrough, Councillor Drysdale, Councillor Maureen Johnston, Councillor Lowe and Councillor Marshall. I had one apology submitted prior to the meeting from our Vice Chair, Councillor Beretti, and not present at the start of the meeting is 6 members, being Councillors Blake, Councillor Giusti, Councillor Hill, Councillor Jordan, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Walters. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tracy. And I did receive an email from Councillor Thompson. I think he had copied it to you as well, apologising and saying we'd not be able to attend the meeting today. So if you record his apologies, please, I'd be grateful. Are there any declarations of interest, members? Councillor Drybrough, Archie, please.
It's no declaration of interest. It's the other one, whatever it's called. I do know the objector in item 4, but I've never spoke to her or anything on these particular things. She is a veteran.
Thanks very much, Councillor Drybrough. I take it you mean a statement of connection, but you intend to remain.
That's correct.
Thank you. Councillor Pauline Drysdale, please. Pauline.
Morning, Chair. Morning, members. I would like to declare a connection with item number 5, as I know the landowner, so I will not partake and I will leave the meeting for that item. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that declaration, Councillor Drysdale. Councillor Marshall. Sean, please.
Yeah, same as Councillor Driver with regards to statement of a connection. I know the person for item 4, she's secretary of the Annan Play Park Steering Group, and I'm the chair.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Marshall. Aye. Oh, Councillor Hislop Ivor, please.
Chair, statement of connection. It's an item 5, but I'm a member of the District Salmon Fishery Board, and there are concerns in here about water pollution and quality. Do I need to leave for that if it's not in the Nith District Salmon Fishery Board area? But I would like to raise concerns with regard to making sure things are done properly.
I will ask Tracy, our governance officer, although it's always you, Councillor Hislop, that makes the final determination. But Tracy, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to record a statement of connection, Councillor Hislop. Obviously, we are not the ones making the decision on that application. We're just a consultee, so I don't think you'd have to leave the meeting for that one.
Thanks for that, Councillor Hislop. If there are no other declarations, we'll go to the minute and then the procedure for today that should be followed. So item 3 is the minute of the previous meeting of 25th of February 2026. If this is a true record, members, I'd appreciate clarification or acceptance of that. I've certainly got acknowledgement in the hall it's a true record, and there's no... Everyone's happy, so thank you very much. We'll declare that a true record, or a true record of the minute of the 26th of February. Tracy, can you now, our clerk, take us through the process for today, please?
Thank you, Chair. The Planning Applications Committee will consider each application in turn as detailed on the agenda. The case officer or other appointed officer will make a short presentation addressing the determining issues accompanied by digital images. Any late information, amendments or corrections will be reported at this time. Members may ask questions of officers following the presentation on points of clarification. The Chair has been provided with a list of eligible representatives who have registered to speak at this meeting within the period specified in Council policy. No other persons will be allowed to speak. The Chair will individually invite those who have registered in advance to speak to make their presentation, after which they may be questioned by committee members. No questions may be asked of members. The order of eligible parties being heard will be as follows: third parties objecting to an application, third parties supporting an application, statutory consultees objecting to an application, elected members of Dumfries and Galloway Council who are not members of the Planning Applications Committee, and such members should withdraw from the meeting after making their presentation, and then applicants or their agents. Representatives were offered the option of attending today's meeting in person or joining remotely via Microsoft Teams, and a copy of the public speaking list is available from the committee officer taking notes of our proceedings. Presentations will be strictly limited to 3 minutes per person, except for national and major developments, which by their very nature are more complex, where the time limit will be 5 minutes. The Chair of the committee will ask you to come to a conclusion if you take too long. Representatives are encouraged to use the time allotted to clarify any points they consider material and address the determining issues. Certain matters are not normally material planning considerations and will not be taken into account by the Council when deciding on a planning application. Representatives should not raise any new matters without explaining why they were not raised earlier with the case officer. Please do not repeat what is in the report, as members will have already read the report. After all the representations have been heard, the meeting is then in formal session, and no members of the public may address the committee from the public gallery. The Planning Applications Committee will then proceed to determine the application. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Tracy. Members, move on to agenda item number 4, an application of planning permission in principle for erection of 2 dwelling houses and formation of vehicular access at land adjacent to 32 Highfields Road, Annan. This is a planning permission in principle application, reference number 2526/0171/PIP. Recommendation is to refuse, and our case officer is Rachel Lightfoot. Rachel, would you like to take us through your presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. The application is for the change of use of an area of open space to allow for the creation of 2 dwellings. As stated, the application is in principle, so we don't have any details rather of the houses that might be built. So just turning to the presentation, the red site is the site in question. As you can see, there is not a lot of relief from the built environment in this location. The block plan detailing that the plot could be split up into 2 sites. So this is the land looking towards 32 Highfields, and then just panning round, looking towards the bungalows on Highfields Road. Just for information, this is the approved layout of the scheme as it was granted in '98 with the public open space detailed there on the plan. So the key issues for us today are the loss of open space and the impact of on the character of the area, for which we are recommending refusal. So the site is not protected open space within the local plan due to its size. However, this does not diminish its importance as a space within the community as a community facility. Comments have been made by the applicant that other spaces in the area, such as Spring Bells Park or Newington Primary School, could benefit from a potential financial contribution in lieu of losing this space. This is covered in paragraph 4.6, and it is not considered to provide suitable mitigation to support the loss of the open space in this location. The applicant also considers that the smaller size of the site means that it has less benefits. Paragraph 4.7 of the report assesses this consideration, noting that there is no evidence that the space is suffering from any antisocial behaviour. Objection letters have been received from several surrounding properties, noting that the space has been used for community gatherings such as at the Jubilee, and underlining the importance of the open space for the community, allowing children to have a kick around, etc. The Planning Department acknowledges that new homes are needed, but as noted in paragraph 4.9, the benefits of losing this space do not outweigh the harm caused, and therefore the application cannot be considered acceptable in principle. Whilst the principle is considered unacceptable, further, due to the erosion of character of the street scene, as explained in 4.12, through the loss of the open space in this otherwise built-up location. The roads team have raised no objection to the proposal. Drawing everything together, the proposal does have some benefits in that it would result in the delivery of 2 houses. However, it is considered that the harm caused through the loss of public open space, both as a community facility and as an important element of the character of the locality in this location, outweighs that limited benefit. The application is therefore recommended for refusal. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rachel. Do we have any questions for our case officer? Councillor Marshall, Sean, please.
Yeah, thanks. Just a couple of questions for Rachel and maybe David. Just when you look at 1.4, and it does state, you know, that is open space, but because it's not met the threshold, and no large areas of protected open space are identified in LDP2, I'm just wondering what that threshold is and whether or not we can look at that when we're developing LDP3. Because when you look at 4.4 and 4.5, when you look at the history and the planning permissions, it's clear that this is designated open space. And, you know, I think there was an application in 1995 for 39 houses, and then Rachel alluded to the fact that in 1998, you can clearly see it's a designation of open space. And it's really just moving forward because obviously, you know, within a house in emergency, and smaller developers are probably looking at these, what they think are infill sites, but, you know, are protected by historical planning conditions. So it's more a general question. The second question is, I know that there's got to be a working group on LDP 3, but is there something we can do that it might be that even specifically areas like this that have been identified as open space can be kind of marked in some way on the local development plan? Because developers look at these areas and they might buy this land thinking they can develop on it, but when you look at the history of the planning permissions, it's clear that it's open space.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Marshall. I see David City scrolling through the policies, so I'll ask him to respond to you first, and then I'll come to Rachel and see if she wants to help as well. And I think you're right, many years ago we did try and make sure these areas were protected and designated in a specific way to discourage development, but that's not the case on this particular one today, and I appreciate that. Mr City, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's, as much as anything, it's a logistical thing that trying to map every little bit of open space that's been required on a meaningful GIS map that you can read at a scale of a settlement is very challenging. You could get down to the sort of the micro level such as this, but I don't know the specific threshold to answer your question. I don't think it's more than so many square meters will be recorded. I could check that with the LDP team, but notwithstanding that, there is protection for open space, whether or not it's designated under LDP2 policy CF3A, protection of open space. So it doesn't have to specifically be identified as a significant area of open space to have that protection, and that is set out in Rachel's report. As to whether or not there's something else we can do, that is definitely something to raise with the discussions for the working groups for LDP3. It might be the case that with development of GIS, you can get down to that level for all of them to be included. Yeah, that's something just for another day, perhaps, rather than the committee today, but it's certainly worth raising the point.
Thanks very much, David. And Rachel, do you have anything to add to that for Councillor Marshall?
Only while David has helpfully been speaking, so I've been able to quickly get on the council's website, but the current threshold is 0.2 of a hectare in terms of open space, and what we show as protected. So this application is about 0.08. So it is smaller than that 0.2 of a hectare, which is at the point it becomes meaningful on a map rather than just a green dot, I suspect. But just for
Thanks very much, Rachel. Does that satisfy you, Councillor Marshall?
Yeah, it does, and I'm on the working group as well, so I think it's certainly something we need to look at, especially, you know, because we've had to go through the whole process, but when you look at the historic planning history of this site, it's clear that it's open space. So there's maybe something that we can do, because that saves, you know, people objecting in the future, and maybe, you know, like developers not actually acquiring land that they think is for development when there's clear protections on it. So it's something for us to take forward, and maybe will help the process in the future when we develop and adopt LDP3.
Thanks very much, Councillor Marshall. Mr City, David wants to come back in.
I think it's maybe just to make members aware, if you look at the bottom of page 21 of your agenda, that there was a pre-application inquiry for this development, where clear advice was given that officers would be unable to support the development of the open space, but they submitted the application anyway. So it is open to anybody, even if they've had advice, to test the waters, to put an application in, and we can't really prevent that.
Thank you, and thanks, Councillor Marshall. Any other questions for our case officer? Councillor Johnson Maureen, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It may just be a silly question, but I note that this is quite a grassed area. Who actually maintains that piece of ground as it is at the moment? And who's responsible for the maintenance of it? Thank you.
I think in your report, the committee report, it says the council cuts the grass, but who actually owns it might be a different matter, and it must be a kind of local arrangement that because it's currently being used by members of the public that the Annandale area Line of Street Service Manager might be the person to ask that question. But Rachel, can you help Councillor Johnson, please?
Yeah, as far as we're aware, it's the council that cuts it, but I'm not entirely sure who owns it.
Thank you. That satisfy Councillor
Thank you.
Johnson?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Mr Sutty, please.
Just looking online, the planning application form says that the applicant is the owner of all the land. But I do agree it's certainly a well-maintained area, which I do believe, because of the date of the original permission, was still at a time when the council would maintain public open space.
Thank you, and thanks for that additional information, Mr Sutty. If there are no other questions for our case officer, we have our first registered speaker, who is Louise Ross, and Louise should be joining us in Teams. If you're there,
Hello.
Louise,
Hi there.
good morning. The procedure to follow, Louise, is that you will have 3 minutes to make your presentation to committee members. I will remind you 30 seconds to go, just to draw your presentation to a conclusion. And if you've been kind enough to wait in case members have questions for you, I'd be grateful. So just whenever you're ready, Louise, thank you.
Okay, I've just got a very brief statement from the residents of Highfields Road, so I'll read that out to you. So good morning and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm here to object on behalf of the residents of Highfields Road to the proposal to build the 2 dwelling houses in the open green space area of our street. Although this land may not have a formally designated use, it has long served as an important informal community space for the residents who live around it. It's regularly used for recreation, children playing safely away from the main roads, neighbours meeting socially, people exercising, and for our pets to have a little bit of a run around as well. Because the space is overlooked by surrounding homes, parents are able to supervise their children while they play safely away from the main traffic on Hospital Road, and potentially antisocial behaviour sometimes reported at local parks. The space is particularly valuable during the COVID pandemic, when access to nearby outdoor areas became essential for both physical and mental well-being. And if this development goes ahead, this shared space will be lost permanently. And once it's gone, it can't be replaced. The loss would inevitably reduce the quality of life for both the current residents and any future families that moved into the area. There are also practical concerns around the traffic and parking. Highfields Road is already a busy residential street, with many households having 2 or more cars and some work vans as well. Adding additional dwellings into it would inevitably increase both the vehicular movement and parking pressure, which could affect safety and congestion on the street. The development would likely have an impact on the character and appearance of the street and the area as well. The open green space contributes to the street's overall aesthetic and the sense of openness. Building on it could also lead to overshadowing for properties on Hospital Road, as the land itself sits slightly higher in elevation, and replacing the green space with buildings and hard surfaces may also increase the surface water runoff and flooding risks, which should be carefully considered. Finally, I understand that the previous planning applications for development on this land were denied, so many of the residents that I'm speaking on behalf of were understandably concerned and unclear as to why a similar proposal is now being considered. Taking all of this into account, the loss of the valued community space, the negative impact on the quality of life of the residential neighbours, increasing parking pressure and the change of character to the area, we respectfully request that the committee refuse the application in the interest of protecting existing community and local environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louise, and thank you for being brief. Members, any questions for Louise? Councillor Slater, David, please.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Louise, is this land, is it used by the community for events on a regular basis or any way at all? That's really
so it's used fairly regularly by most of the residents for definitely for the children. They tend to play football on it in the summer. It's like badminton, things like that. People use it to throw toys for their dogs. we have been known at times to gather there in the summertime and like bank holiday weekends and things like that, you know, for national events like the Jubilee. It is well used as an open space area.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Slater. Any other questions for Louise? In that case, Louise, thank you very much for coming forward today and thanks for your presentation.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members were in session. Councillor McFarlane and then Councillor Dryborough.
Yeah, happy to support officers' recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Dryborough, please.
Yeah, I'd go along with that, sure.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dryborough. Any alternative views? In that case, a unanimous decision. Tracy, can you just confirm the decision of the committee, please?
Mr. Chair, members have agreed to refuse the application on the grounds detailed in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to agenda item number 5. This is a consultation regarding an application made under Section 37 of the Electricity Act 1989 for proposed 17.5 kilometres, 132 kilovolt Trident wood pole overhead line from Lorg Wind Farm to the proposed Home Hill substation with an amended description. At Lorg Wind Farm grid connection, formerly known as Lorg and Longburn, near Carsfairn. It's a Section 37 consultation, reference number 25/2174/S37. The recommendation is to raise no objection, and the case officer is Rob Lilburn. Rob, I see you're with us today. Can you take us through your presentation, please?
Thanks, Chair. Good morning. Yes, this is a Section 37 consultation from the Energy Consents Unit, and all Section 37 consultations have to be brought to Planning Committee. It's also been identified as EIA development. And as the Council is a consultee, it is to provide an opinion back to the Scottish Government. To provide the context, the site is an upland area in the upper reaches of the Glen Kens, plantation forestry, and the Ochray Glen, where the Water of Ken flows. And the route would pass alongside the C35 road, the Water of Ken, various scattered dwellings, and I believe holiday accommodation as well. So the first slide, please. Okay, this is the proposed route, which has been arrived at following an iterative process, including consultation and assessments carried out by the applicant. I may have got slightly ahead of myself, apologies. Just to describe the development a little bit more before I go further into that. So the poles that are proposed as part of the route would be wooden H poles, which have been chosen due to the elevation and the weather conditions. And these would be carrying 3 lines. The average height of the poles would be some 13 metres, with a maximum of some 15 metres. The number of poles would be 201. It would connect the consented Lorg Wind Farm to the proposed Home Hill substation up by the A713. And as part of the proposal, wayleave areas would be created by felling sections of forestry. In the course of construction, watercourse and road crossings would be required, and that would include crossing some rights of way and core paths. That includes the right of way to Cairnsmore of Carsfairn. New construction accesses and associated working and laydown areas would be formed, and existing accesses would also be utilised with possible upgrading. The applicant has stated that all accesses and construction sites would be reinstated. A construction period of 16 months is envisaged, and consultation responses that have been sent to the Energy Consents Unit, as well as internal consultation responses, are at section 1.19 of the officer report. As a section 37 consultation, there's not a mechanism for the council to take representations from third parties, and those would go to the Energy Consent Unit. Okay, so the route as shown as I've described has followed a process, a selection process, and the consultations and assessments have been summarised in paragraph 4.6 of the officer report. If we can move on to the next slide, please. This line does show bird ornithological protection markers, but I've chosen to include it because it's got a colour background, so I just thought that'd be a bit clearer. The next slide, please. This slide is from the consented Lorg Wind Farm scheme, and you can see at the bottom in the middle, that's the top of Auchray Glen, and the proposed substation, or as part of the consented scheme, which is subject to conditions, is indicated towards the right at the bottom and marked in red. That's substation A, and the proposal is to connect to substation A. Next slide, please. This shows the proposed site layout for the proposed Home Hill substation, which is still pending consideration as a full application with the council, and it indicates where the proposed line would enter that site. Now, the next slide will be the first of a series of detail maps. This shows the proposed positions of the poles and the line routing in more detail, together with associated working areas, laydown areas, points at which scaffolding would need to be erected, for example, for watercourse crossings. It also shows a infrastructure location allowance, as well as construction access routes, both existing and proposed. This section is within the Galloway Hills Regional Scenic Area, and it runs close to and it crosses as well the water of Dew, Ben Lochburn, and numerous tributaries of that. The construction access route at this point would follow an existing core path, which leads on to Cairnsmore Craftsfairn via the Green Well of Scotland. Next slide, please. So that shows where an existing core path, so this is moving eastwards, sorry, that shows where an existing core path would be used for construction access, which is an alternative route to Cairnsmore Craftsfairn via Knockgray. The route here would cross another right of way, which goes on to run past the top of Auchray Glen. And a new construction access, as you can see at the right, would be formed from Marbrack. Next slide, please. So moving eastwards again, and this shows where the route would cross Marbrack Burn. Bear with me a second. Yeah, so it would follow on, as you can see, past Farmerston Craig and down into Craig and Gillen Glen, to the bottom of Auchray Glen, where it would cross the C35 road and the Water of Ken. As you can see, there's scaffolding indicated there. The access route that you can see, construction access route you can see on the towards the left, that leads up and is indicated on, I think it's indicated on the next slide, my apologies. If we move on to the next slide. Yeah, so that leads up from the B729 at Netherlosky, partly using an existing access, but then going on to require the formation of a new temporary access. That slide also indicates a proposed working area and access up to the top of Craig and Gillen Glen. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. This shows the proposed new construction access from Smitton's Bridge, the B729. This crosses an area of archaeological interest and various areas of archaeological interest through that area right up to the top of the construction access. Meeting the point at the bottom of Craig and Gillen Burn and crossing the Water of Ken, and then the route passing obviously northwards. So the next slide will then show the route running along the base of Auchray Hill on the east side of the Water of Ken, and obviously east of the C35 road, past the clusters of dwellings, and the next slide will then show it travelling up to the top of the glen, crossing another right of way, which in turn leads on to the Southern Upland Way, and obviously finally moving upwards to the Lorg substation site. Okay, next slide should just give you, your road's context, self-explanatory really. The red line on the left shows the main overhead transmission route, and Home Hill is proposed to link various wind farms onto that route. So it would provide an export route for the energy generated. Next slide. Okay, that shows the relationship to European designated sites within a 10-kilometre radius, and that includes Merrick Kells, and obviously Loch End Riverdee Marshes a bit further away. Next slide, please. Possibly a bit on the detailed side at the moment, but that shows the number of rivers, streams, tributaries crossed by the proposal. Okay, and next slide. Cumulative picture. So this is to indicate the setting amongst consented and proposed or in planning wind farms. Next slide, please. Okay, some examples of trident wooden poles. That's actually from a consultation document. There are some degrees of variation among that, and there might be something on the next slide, I think. Just to reveal that. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are the viewpoint locations that were selected as part of their landscape and visual impact assessment. I've taken some of these to present here, but not all, just to keep the presentation from being too long. So we move on to the first one. Okay, so they're giving us a viewpoint from the public right of way at Benloch Burn. That's looking in a generally easterly direction. And the next slide will give a wireline drawing to show how the proposal would sit within that context. Next slide, please. This is a little bit further up the path towards Kingsmore Carsfairn, and it's looking back in a west-southwesterly direction towards the Rins of Kells. And the next slide will show how the proposal would sit in that setting. Next, please. Okay, from Marbrack, and the next one will show a wire line from this point. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Hagan Gillen has been identified that there would be a bit more of an impact, visual impacts, including on residents at Hagan Gillen, by reason of the relationship of the proposal in that landscape. And the wireline on the next slide will show how that might be seen. Thank you. Okay, next slide. That's from a similar location, looking up Auchray Glen in a northeasterly direction, and the route would pass along at the base of Auchray Hill, where you can see the forestry. Next, please. Okay, now looking back south, just to give a flavour of how it sits in the landscape. And the next slide. Okay, and obviously the wire lines don't include vegetation or other features. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, Corley, that's right, and context from Corley on the next slide. Okay, and the next slide, please, which I think might be one of the last. Okay, also on approach to Corley, looking east, so you're looking kind of east-northeast in the glen there. And the next slide will show the context. Thank you. And the next slide, this is at the basically where the route would turn up the hillside towards Lorg, and the next slide will show the wire line. Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. Right, so this is a fairly distant view. It does actually show an existing wooden pole construction in the foreground, but what you can see there is the very low level Quantons Hill is between Knock Grey, I believe, from memory, on the left, and these are approaching Ben Inner to the right, which is behind Firmiston Craig. So the lines, the perceptibility obviously would be reduced from this distance, but they would cross some of that open landscape towards the back of Firmiston Craig. Next slide, please. Yep, that's a closer view. So Craig and Knock Grey, and there's an extract from the previous slide. So if you were to cross-refer that to the route plan, you'd see how the proposal would traverse the landscape. Next slide, please. Okay, this is from the B729, and it is more of a general context because the line wouldn't be visible in that context. Auchray Glen is obviously in between the hills there and the sort of high ground in the foreground. Next slide. So looking north at Auchray, so that's on approach to I think it's before Corley. So the line would be travelling on the right hand side of that picture. Next slide, please. And looking back south from the same vicinity towards Craig and Gillen Hill, these are the sort of lower forested hills that you can see in the middle of the picture. That might be the last one. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we've recommended various conditions, including replacement planting for forestry lost, for way leave, biodiversity enhancement, micrositing, construction hours, and a SEMP, a construction environmental management plan, to include construction and reinstatement proposals, soil management, pollution prevention plan, and a breeding bird protection plan. Okay, and just one final point has been brought to my attention, which I think this will be raised later on, that there's a mention of an archaeological clerk of works in the report, but there's no condition covering it. So that will come up a little bit later in the discussion, I think. Okay, I'll leave that there for now. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rob. We have one elected member with a question for you, Councillor Slater, please. David.
Yes, thank you, Rob. Regarding all this track, is it 17 kilometres? Is it all above ground, or is there some actually buried under the ground? Also, is there a fire break here? What width of the fire break? Because obviously electrical cables, and normally in forestry there is a fire break. So could you possibly tell me the width of that, if possible? And also, for birds flying, I must admit, is there any markers on the poles or on the line to show where, if they're flying, they'll be able to see the lines? Because I find in the pictures here very difficult to actually see the lines. And some of the, I know they're not there yet. I know it's it's graphics as such, but it's just the fact that they look as if they just disappear out of the back, or they will just disappear out of the background. So that's 2 or 3 points I'd like you to answer, please. Thank you very much.
David, the report says quite clearly undergrounding was considered and not decided against. And the report also says there are attachments to be put on the lines to protect birds, and it makes reference to I think red kite especially in other. So that's in your report, but Rob, can you just here Mr. Sutty got to get it, he's been checking the report. David?
Thanks, Chair. I would just draw members' attention to page 51 of your agenda and recommended condition 12, which is to do with ornithological line markers. Again, it's probably worth just stressing that the planning authority, the council, is not the determining body here. It would be the Scottish Minister. So whilst we can request conditions, the ultimate decision about which conditions go on would remain with the Scottish Ministers, but they do have a pretty standard set of conditions which they would use. So what Rob's report does is reflect those sort of conditions which have been used previously.
Thanks, David. If you go to page 48, at the top of the page, it says quite clearly, recommended conditions and reasons to be attached to Section 37 consent and deemed planning permission, and it's then in Scottish Government's hands whether or no they apply with them. There was a question about a fire break, and again, that might be something that we might want or might not, or we may have already considered it, Robin. Again, it's not for us to decide, but can you give some assurance to councillors later that that's been considered?
I can only refer back to the way leave areas, which, from my understanding, related to wind throw and maintenance. I'm not familiar with the fire break issue. So I'm going to need to maybe discuss that with somebody.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Councillor Slater can make representation to the Scottish Government consent units if he feels strongly enough about it.
Thank you, Chair.
And you did make a mention of a condition that might be added or adjusted, and we will do that when we get to the decision of the committee, if we're going to agree with the case officer's proposal to raise no objection. And if that's the case, we'll then ask Mr Sutty to refresh the additional condition that he would like to add. And I had one question, and again, it was about conditions, Rob, rather than the report itself. I'm conscious that there'll be countless tracks created throughout a network of tracks throughout installation if it's approved. Can we somehow make representation, we want them retained for public use? Because it does say a public access will be maintained. There's also the Scottish right to roam legislation. But I find that often developers padlock their gates once their installations are in place. And it's about trying to ensure that there are no restrictions and that any network of paths that are created for the construction are sort of left for the longer term benefit of the residents of the area if we agree that proposal. So I'll just leave that in with you, Robin, and I'll see if there are any other questions for our case officer. Oh, Councillor Hislop, of course I have. Ivor, please.
Morning, Rob. It's to do with the sort of fishings and crossing of waters. Now, if I've read this right, it's September this back end they're planning to start, 16 months, so you're getting a full winter plus maybe 3 or 4 months in the second year. Does the construction environmental plan thing, does that actually cover sufficiently any concerns whereby you might get pollution into rivers so that there's no effect in salmonids? And we know if the EIA has recorded what level of salmonids are in the river, so that if there is a pollution incident, they can actually assess what damage it has done if there were to be one.
Rob.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the construction environmental management plan is to include a pollution prevention plan, and I think the scope of that would be expected to include matters relating to siltation, diversion of water flows, risks of pollution from plant materials and vehicles, effects of water crossings if they were to be introduced. So what would be the design and specification of water crossings? And where protected species are identified, then species protection plans would be necessary to address that as well. So that I would expect to be covered in a pollution prevention plan, and Nature Scott should be commenting on these matters back to the Scottish Government in detail.
I've got Mr Sutty just wanting to add something, but I know we have Jim Henderson, the District Salmon Fisheries Board, and I would hope that here is equivalent in the Stewart who might be consulted or should be consulted by the consent unit. But Mr Sutty wants to add a bit, David.
Thanks, Chair. It's really just to make members aware of the fact that we are just one consultee from the Scottish Ministers, so other bodies such as SEPA, Nature Scott and probably the Salmon Fisheries Board as well would be consulted. And whilst you've got in your papers the conditions that we think would be appropriate, there will also almost certainly be other conditions which the Scottish Ministers would want to add. I'd also draw members' attention to page 48 and recommended condition 4, That's to do with the actual, there's two parts of any consent that would be given. One is the deemed planning permission, which is in part 2. Part 1 is the actual consent, which would be given under section 37 of the Electricity Act. So condition 4 there, the standard wording is to do with serious incident reporting. So in the event that there was any pollution, the Scottish ministers have a procedure that's required to be put into place to cover things such as pollutions of rivers.
Thanks, Councillor. Is there any other questions for our case officer? Councillor John Campbell, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, on page 33, it actually gives you those external of the council, like Nature Scott, and if you look at the bullet point, I think it's 2, 4, 6 bullet point down, it says Nature Scott are satisfied in regard to the relevant matters of national interest. So they have been in consultation with external bodies, including the likes of the Mountaineering Scotland request that the applicant prepares an outdoor access management plan. So hopefully that when the Scottish ministers come to determine this application, they take into consideration not only our conditions, but other conditions from external bodies. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Campbell. That was just a bit of advice and an observation rather than a question. Yeah, okay, that's fine. If we have no other questions for a case officer, we're in session. If we're proposed or intend to support this if we are intent or intending to raise no objection, I would hope that we would agree to include the condition that David wants to attach archaeology and delegate to officers to ensure that public access is protected, for want of a better word. And I'm Councillor Dryburgh. I'll invite Councillor Dryburgh to speak just in case he's got to make a proposal.
Well, I was going to say that I agree with the recommendations of the report, but I'm also happy to ensure that David's condition is in there as well.
Thanks, Councillor Dryburgh. Any alternative views? In that case, we agree to raise no objections and include in the recommendations or the conditions that we'd like to be attached a further one about archaeology and protection of paths. Is that right, David? And are you willing to do that as a delegated authority?
Certainly, there's no problem about adding in. It's really just to go back, make it clear. If members look at paragraph 4.29, which is on page 43, there is mention of an archaeological clerk of works, but Laura picked up that that wasn't actually reflected in a condition. Has been used in other ones, so it would be simply replicating the sort of standard wording that members have. In terms of access issues, I already note that in recommended condition 15.1M on page 52, you've got a recreation access management plan being required to ensure continuity of access for hill walkers to Cairnsmore of Carsfairn. So I think that is largely covered anyway.
Happy with that, members? Everybody content? And Laura, by the way, is our legal advisor. Laura picked up on that issue. Okay, Tracy, can you confirm the decision of the committee, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members have agreed to raise no objection to the consultation and are requesting an additional recommended condition to Appendix 1. Should Scottish ministers be minded to approve the application, and that's relating to an archaeological clerk of works being present on site as detailed in paragraph 4.29 of the report. But the wording will be confirmed in the minute for that condition.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Move on to agenda item 6. It's an appeal decision for information and noting only. An application for change of use of dwelling house class 9 to form residential care home class 8 at Corbridge House, Milton, Crockett Ford. This is a full application and ministers dismissed the appeal and refused planning permission. If members are happy to note that.
Yep.
Everyone happy to note. Thank you very much. Members, I have no other business for today. Thank you very much for your attendance as usual and your input to the debate. Meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.